Nothing but illustrious guests. We're here at Omega Studio School in Studio A, and our first illustrious guest for the year 2022 is Frank Staxx. Everybody, let's hear it for Frank Staxx. Yeah. Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming by.
I'm happy to be here, man.
Can you give us a little background on you? You know, like where you're from, when you came here, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. I'm from Northern Virginia, Manassas specifically. I heard about the school. A lot of people don't believe me when I say this, but I found out about Omega through a TV commercial, like many, many years ago. And it just popped in my head one day when I was ready to, take that leap into like the education. And I came through, talked to the school, and enrolled.
So what's your current life like? I mean, how long have you been out of school and what are you doing?
I graduated in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while to really like figure things out after school, which is okay for a lot of people, but I moved to the A in Atlanta, so now it's just like I'm a full-time engineer. That's like how I make my living. I don't have a separate job or anything like that, so now that's like my current main source of income.
How did you get to that point? I mean, I know you just didn't move to Atlanta and you all of a sudden got gigs.
Right, correct. The main thing, networking, fearlessly, just meeting people and making yourself uncomfortable. I'm very socially awkward, but I make jokes and stuff to kind of get through it, and that's the main thing, like networking. When you're likable and people enjoy being around you, you're gonna constantly get calls and things like that.
Describe a significant networking event that led to an opportunity.
Dang, okay. I'd probably say it was a writing camp that I was in. And I was just sitting there, and there were some people from LA in the room. And when in that specific camp, the artist was trying to hit a high note, and I cracked the joke, trying to hit the note myself. I'm not gonna repeat how I did the note, but everyone kind of just like thought I was serious because I kept a straight face.
Right. And
they were just waiting. And then I was like, I'm just kidding. And then the room kind of like, broke into laughter. And the people just kept requesting me when they would come back. I'd say that was like a moment where that came into, like that worked in my favor.
And so from that point on, it's been nonstop?
Yeah, whenever those people are in town, they always, call me. But as far as networking, like I always just, I exchange information with people, but the most important thing is to stay in contact with them.
Mm-hmm.
I make it a point at least every 2 weeks to I have a list of contacts. Whenever I get someone's contact, I add them to that list, and I'll look through my list. I'll be like, oh, I haven't talked to them in a week or two. Hey, what's going on? And like, stay in touch, keep a fresh face with everybody, because that's like super important. If not, you get forgotten.
That sounds like a good deal. A lot of people say they have a purpose or a mission when it comes to their occupation. What about you? You have a passion? I mean, do you have a mission, a purpose?
I wouldn't say I don't really have a set mission, but I feel like my purpose is to be selfless. So like my mom, she always tells me like, don't be afraid of sharing like what you know. So I ran into quite a few industry people that are, they're like afraid to share their wealth and their mind. So I make it a point to not do that. When someone's like, hey, how do you do this? Or what's your technique on this? I show them exactly how I do it. And, I'm not afraid that someone's gonna take my job or be better than me. Like, that's what it's all about. Because if I die tomorrow, no one's gonna know how I did this or that. So I would say that is my mission, like sharing my knowledge, not hiding anything from anyone, like being an open book.
So let's build on that. I mean, you and I both know that you have been extremely welcoming and helpful to Omega students and graduates who have come down to Atlanta. Describe what that's like, and why you feel like you need to do it.
I feel like it's exciting, you know, just bringing somebody new and kind of introducing them to, like, it's interesting seeing, like, the same thing I went through.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, a new person in the city, like, you can tell they're, like, still green a little bit, and you just kind of help mold them. But when I first got out there, you know, I went through a lot of difficult situations, you know, with people trying to, like, play gatekeeper, or just, like, having to really figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? So if I can make it easier for somebody that's ready, I'm going to do it and put that opportunity in front of them.
So while you were at Omega, you had a lot of instructors and maybe some mentors. Who sticks out?
Man, that's a tough question. Every instructor stood out in their own way. Like, I don't think I had, like, a favorite, because I just really enjoyed every class.
Right.
You know, I had a real good bond with Tony, Pete Novak,
Mm-hmm.
Cephas, Scotty, Jim.
Right.
So, like, every instructor, like, was special to me, because, like, they had their own little sauce that they would share with us during each class.
Right.
And it was interesting because they all had different musical backgrounds, some hip hop, you know, some rock. And things like that.
Right.
So I don't think one in particular influenced me more than the other. I would put them all on the same pedestal.
So when you look back on your education, rather your training here, and look on your career now, I mean, do you think there's a value in attending a school like this?
Yes.
Like Omega?
Yes. So that's a gray area answer, because I'll put it this way, like, sometimes, like, people get in without, you know, the education,
right.
But there's that learning curve of, like, not knowing the core principles of, you know, what makes this work. So I would say, yes, there is value in going to a school, because you learn, like, the principles of audio, you know, what to do, what not to do. And if you take those rules, once you know those rules, you can break them. Because, yeah, and it's funny, because when I first started doing things, I was so by the book and everything, but you just got to be creative. My technical brain was taking over my creative brain.
Mm-hmm.
So once you know those rules, you can kind of do whatever. But if you don't know them, you're kind of, like, just floating around. So I would say, yeah, school is important when it comes to something like this.
Have you ever been in a situation where, you know, you were doing a tracking or a mix or whatever, and you got lost and didn't know what to do?
Thankfully, no.
Good. Okay,
Thankfully,
good.
no. I've had to fill in, you know, in situations like that. Like, you know, there will be somebody in the chair that, you know, either is having technical difficulties, you know, and I'll come in and I'll step in and help. But I haven't had that moment where I blank out. I always try to show up early,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can make sure everything's running properly. I was at a big label, and I showed up at their studio, and they had this SSL legacy board, and nothing was working. Like, there was missing knobs and stuff. I was just like, and that room is kind of just for show.
Oh, okay.
But they wanted a track in that room, so I spent like an hour trying to, like, get signal, and I was like, okay, finally, here we go, boom. And, like, the routing was just crazy, but I got it to work, and it was all just by, like, you know, trying to stay focused and not blank out.
So that's a testament to some of the training you received at Omega.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're in the ATL. What's the scene like there? What's it like being an audio engineer there, a recording engineer down there?
Fast-paced. That's fast-paced. Like, the way they record out there is just one after the other. Like, most artists will punch in, and they'll just kind of go off the top of the head, and they'll just create on the spot. So I'd say when I got out there, I had to really just learn how to be speedy in Pro Tools. Quick. because once their ideas are flowing out, you don't want to mess up their workflow. You want to be like an extension of them when you're in the studio.
How long did it take you to kind of, you've only been there, you haven't been there that long. How long did it take you to get up to their speed?
One session. Like, I was working with an artist and they were so fast, and I'm like, man, like, I'm not used to this. And like, we took a little break, and I, you know, had a little conversation with him, and he just told me, yeah, you gotta be fast, and I just started, like, you know, picking up the speed as we went through the session, and I found a workflow that worked for me.
Right.
So like, you know, you just boom, 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 boom. So I didn't have a lot of time to learn, but yeah, I had to do it quick. I had to pick up the pace fast.
So, okay, let's say you could speak directly to some young up-and-coming engineers or producers in the industry. What kind of advice would you offer them about, you know, becoming successful, along with the networking thing you were talking about? What else works?
Do favors. Do favors. Don't be afraid to do a favor. It's not always about money. There's been situations where somebody, you know, and it doesn't even have to be a famous person. Like, just do favors for people, because that's where you gain respect. And like, do favors without expectations too. Like, actually do favors for people. And
you mean mixing or tracking? Or
yeah, if it's a tracking session, like, work with their number, or, you know, don't be afraid to make a little bit less. Like, my mentor out there, he told me the goal should be to make $100 a day. $100 a day. You hit that mark, $100 a day, you will be successful. You can make a living. So, you know, that's always the goal. You know, if I've made my $100 a day and somebody's like, hey, can you do this for me? And if I see that they really need it, or if I'm able to do it, I'll do it. So favors go a long way, and it ties into networking.
Right, I can imagine. Let's look back in the past. If you were able to talk to your former self around the time you graduated, what advice would you give yourself?
Quit your job and move.
Okay.
Straight up. I spent, it took me 4 years after graduating to do anything. You know, I got stuck in that job cycle, like, and
because you were doing construction, right?
Yeah, I'm like, why am I doing construction? I did construction for 4 more years after graduating. Why? So like, I would just say, quit your job and move. Everyone gets stuck in that like 9-to-5 mentality, and it's real easy to do because you're comfortable. You're getting that paycheck,
right?
And you tell yourself, oh, I can't do this. What if this? What if that? That's the exciting part.
What if?
Yeah, like, you leave, you jump, and then you experience all these new things. You're like, wow, you meet all these new people, and it's an experience. So that's my advice. Just get out, move.
So, okay, if we wanted to hire you, how do we book you? What's your social media stuff? What's your Instagram? How can we get a hold of Frank Staxx?
You can get a hold of me on Instagram's my main like hub to contact me. So most people contact me on my main page, Frank Staxx Music. So FrankStaxx Music. And then I have a separate page called Sound Surgeon, soundsurgeon.atl. So that's kind of like my brand that I'm pushing out there. And,
Sound Surgeon.
Yeah, I get clients through there and through my main page.
Cool. Can you talk about the best session you've ever had? I mean, what prepared you to make a great session, or what made it great?
Okay. Best session I ever had. There's been a couple, but there's one in particular. This session, it was a writing camp that we were doing. So
what's a writing camp for those of us who don't know?
Okay. A writing camp is when you put producers and artists together and you create records that you're going to pitch to labels or certain artists. Like, you'll have a target artist and you'll say, hey, we want to make songs like directed to their sound. And you just create. And then once you get those records polished up, you send them off. And if the artist likes them, you know, they'll pick up the record and it's out of there. So it's just pretty much like like a sweatshop, just making
Right.
music and
Okay.
putting it out there.
So the best session you had was in a writing camp. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, it was in a writing camp, and we were just sitting there. We were cooking up this song. The song, what song? The song was called "Good Head," and the artist said a line, something about like Pringles or something. So I don't know, a light bulb just came in my mind. I was like, I'll be right back. I left the room. I went to go grab a bag of chips. Came back, sat down, and I asked the artist to step aside for a second, and I hit record. And right when they said that line, I bit the chip, and it was like an ad-lib moment. And I added that to the song, and they ended up keeping it in the record. So I got production credit on that for adding a chip biting sound. The room went crazy. Like, everybody was just like, wow, my God. All because I bit a chip, but it was just such a moment. Like, it was
You had
crazy.
the right
Unexpected.
timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was probably my favorite session I've ever done, because like I got to be creative and just it was just so free flowing.
And you got recognized for it on the spot.
Yeah, shout out to my dog Amy Amaris. She's a big part of why that was put together. She actually put their camp together, so shout out to her. She's real dope out in Atlanta.
So at any point, since you mentioned the chip thing, do you reference any music that you really like when you're doing any of your sessions?
What do you mean?
Do you think back and say, like, stuff that you like in your head? You like a certain sound, you like a certain producer, a certain engineer. Do you ever reference what they've done when you're doing something that you do?
I used to do that, but now I don't.
Oh, you got your own thing.
Now I've just learned to just create freely.
Okay.
Like, you mean like if in my mind I'm thinking like, oh, this person did that, and like implement it into what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I did that. Like, as soon as I graduated from here, I was doing that a lot, like studying. But now it's more like I just do things. Like, my brain's working while I'm doing stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna drag this here, I'm gonna cut this out here, and I'm painting the picture. I'm like, I try to be Bob Ross, just like just paint, add a tree here, whatever. So I don't think too hard about it. I think that's where people get stuck.
This has been a wonderful, wonderful session. I know you're a busy guy and we got to let you go, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
Stay consistent. For anyone listening, just network. I know I've said that already, but that is so important. Contact people. Do not be afraid to contact people, even if it's a happy birthday or a Merry Christmas or whatever. Stay on top of their mental list. Stay on top of it, and just be a good person, and everything will pay forward.
We'd like to sincerely thank Omega graduate Frank Staxx for taking time out of his busy schedule to come up here all the way to the D.C. area to do this interview. We certainly appreciate it. We have nothing but illustrious guests, and he's our first illustrious guest for 2022. Thank you very much, Frank. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
And a special thanks goes out to our engineers, Isaac Breslew, as well as Andrew Mastrioni, who helped set all this stuff up.